What is going on, guys? DragonTamerBlayde here, back with some more Elder Scrolls Legends Alliance War card reveals. We'll get to the usual shtick. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We've got Elder Scrolls Legends content most days, twice daily, but at a minimum every single day. Go hit the follow button for Twitch as well. We will be streaming Alliance War on Monday, the day it comes out, next week. But yeah, let's get on into it. We've got, I think, 8 or 9 cards we're going to go over today. The reveals are really ramping up since we're only a week out, so I'm going to do my best to keep up and give you guys some breakdown and some reviews. So let's get on into it. First things first, we've got Dragon Guard Outcast. A 3-cost 1/3 lethal. With the summon ability, Dragon Guard Outcast gains cover until she attacks. So 1/3 stat line is about it's 1 cost, pretty much. And you've got lethal and permanent cover until it attacks something. So is this really any better than something like Sanctuary Pet, 3-cost 2/2 Shackle with lethal? In the field lane, I guess you could say potentially. They both die to execute. Sanctuary Pet dies to Firebolt, whereas Dragon Guard Outcast would not. Sanctuary Pet's a really good card, but it also stops an attack, whereas Dragon Guard Outcast will not. I think this card's a little bit better than it looks. I think it looks really bad. It's probably a little bit better than it looks, but I still think in most decks, you're not going to be able to run both of this and Sanctuary Pet. Although I guess there is some merit to maybe saying you could keep Dragon Guard Outcast, never attack, and just have a permanent lethal ping, as long as your opponent doesn't have targeted removal for it. I don't know how reliable that is, and I feel like if you made me choose between this and Sanctuary Pet, I'm choosing Sanctuary Pet, and I think that's a choice you'll probably be making in most lists, besides one where you can make room for both of them. I don't think the card's completely dead. I'd give it something like 2.5 stars. Yeah, it's just, this card doesn't super excite me. I know there's going to be usage for this in the field lane, but I don't think just an occasional I'm better in the field lane than Sanctuary Pet is enough to make up for the fact that Sanctuary Pet's better in, like, probably 80% of situations in the game. Next up, we've got Varen Aqua Larios. Hopefully I'm saying that right, or Aqua Larios. 4-cost 4/6. When one of your runes breaks, you gain 5 health instead of drawing a card. So stat-wise, this is pretty solid. It's about 5 Magicka cost of stats, so you're getting pretty decent here. It's not too aggressively statted, though it's very defensive. But this is a very defensive card. Your usage for this is going to come down to, do you value health over card draw? Usually, if you're a slower deck and you're playing an aggro opponent, you want them breaking your runes for potential prophecies, and or just having extra cards to answer them. However, if you're playing an aggro opponent, and let's say in a hypothetical world they don't skip any runes, so they have to break all 5, you'd be causing your aggro opponent to deal 60 damage to you instead of 30. Or 55 damage to you instead of 30. That being your 30 health, and then 5 health from each of your 5 runes. So they'd have to deal 55 damage to you if Varen stayed alive throughout that entire process. If you're the slower deck, most aggro decks cannot deal 55 damage to you before you have a chance to answer them and stabilize. So obviously in that situation, this is a very good card. So basically, as long as you are slower than your opponent, and you have a sufficient amount of draw elsewhere in your deck to make up for the fact you won't be gaining cards from runes, I think this is a very strong card. It won't be great in all matchups, like in a control mirror. This guy's not going to do a ton for you. He's mostly going to be a dead card. But yeah, it's not the worst thing. It's a one of in your 50 or 75 cards. It's not like it's going to completely kill you. But I can see any control decks that are going to be running like red or green that have a lot of draw, particularly green, with some willpower splashed in, where you don't have to necessarily rely on the runes for card draw. You could be running this as a really quality game extender, to be frank, in a slower deck. I can't say I've really thought about all the different ways to use this guy, because I'm very transparent with the fact that I'm not super great at control decks, but I can see where in a traditional control deck versus a traditional aggro deck, this card can sometimes be enough just to win you the game on its own. And even if it doesn't, and your aggro opponent has to spend resources trading into this card, that still is essentially gaining you life, because that's not them going face. So I'd give this card like a strong 3.5 stars. If control is really, really good and we're in like this current meta, I could see this maybe bumping into a 4-star card. But in general, I'm going to play it on the safe side. Probably say like floor of 3.5, ceiling of 4-ish for Varen. Next up, we've got the Empire Oathman. 4-cost, 4/4. If you have an agility card in play, give other friendly creatures +1/+0. And if you have a willpower card in play, give other friendly creatures +0/+1. So this is similar to the Resolute Ally effect for tokens decks, and we've seen these are going to be the colors of new tokens. And I guess it's, in some ways, it's better than Resolute Ally, because if you're playing tricolor, obviously you can't guarantee that all of your cards are going to be willpower on the top of your deck, so you can't rely on Resolute Ally. At a minimum, I would say in a tokens deck, you're going to want at least a green card on the board when you drop Empire Oathman, because really the attack is more important than the health, although the health is not inconsequential. A 4-cost 4/4 is an okay enough body that you can get away with playing it, but you're really, like I said, you're going to want to make sure you have at least a green card in play. The only issue with that is most tokens you're going to generate are going to generate the 1/1 Imperial Grunts, which are willpower creatures. So you're going to have to find other ways to get a green card on the board, which can prove to be slightly difficult. And at 4 Magicka, you may want to do other things. You're creeping up on... If you're going to go full Imperial, which it's looking like Imperial Triber could be a thing in these colors, maybe you want to be dropping Training Grounds instead for a +1/+1 without conditions. Yeah, I don't even know if the full tokens version, like the idealistic tokens version of this tricolor combination, is even going to run this card necessarily. I don't think it's bad. I just think you're going to have a whole lot of buff potential in these colors, and I don't know if you're going to need it, although I could definitely see it making the cut. If I had to give it a star rating, I would give it like a solid 3 stars. I don't think this card is bad by any means. I just think there's a whole bunch of different ways to accomplish similar things, whether it be with Training Grounds, Divine Fervor, 5th Legion Trainer. There's ways to get it done, but all buffs are potentially good buffs, especially in tokens, so I don't want to completely discount this card, so I think 3 stars is fine. I could see it being a little bit better, though. Next up, we've got Abner Thorn, a unique legendary, 6-cost 5/5, with the summon ability. Abner Thorn uses the summon ability of a creature. Not a friendly creature, a creature. So you can target opposing creatures with this summon ability. I love this card. If you build your deck in an Ulfric's Uprising-esque fashion with a bunch of powerful summon effects, this essentially becomes a doppelganger, which could be better or worse depending on the stat line. So if you're playing a bunch of low stat line creatures with really powerful summon effects, Abner can be a better doppelganger. But additionally, if your opponent has things like Odiving, Parthenax, Marok, Alduin, basically pick your powerful summon ability that your opponent plays, Abner can copy those as well. So that's really, really strong. Additionally, if you have things like Odurner and Necromancer, Abner copying that does not copy Necromancer's attack stat, so you can resurrect 4 attack or lower with Abner, whereas Odurner is 2 or lower. And 4 or lower kind of gives you access to a whole bunch more stuff that you didn't have access to before. So I think this guy is a very powerful card. It's a very flexible card as well. There are going to be times where it can be a little bit tough to get value out of this. However, if you build your deck in such a way to support this ability, and it's not that hard to do since there's so many powerful summon abilities in this game, Abner is almost guaranteed to be strong, and there's times where it can be just a complete blowout if you copy an opponent's summon effect that wasn't expecting it. For that reason, we're going to give Abner 4 stars, potential for 4.5 stars, but I'm going to go with 4 stars to be safe. Yeah, summon abilities kind of more or less rule this game at the moment. Summon abilities and removal, that is. So, Abner can definitely get value for you. Yeah, and the more summon abilities that get printed, the better this card is going to get. Next up, we've got Mystic of Ancient Rites, 2-cost, 2/3. First Khajiit, I think that was revealed in the expansion as well, so that's pretty cool. When Mystic of Ancient Rites empowers an action in your hand, the empower bonus does not expire at the end of the turn. So the one unfortunate thing, which maybe would have made this card too good, I was hoping that it was any empowers that get added during your turn while this card's on the board, but is only empowers from Mystic of Ancient Rites. So I guess this still isn't a bad card if you're a very empower-focused deck. If you attack with this guy even once, preserving that empower trigger could stack up over time, making Spoils of War permanently cost 1 less is obviously very good. Same with things like Debilitate. So this could help in some sort of like control, empower monk type of thing. I don't know. The stat line is fair. It can trade. It survives decently well. Not super great, but decently well enough to where if you play it on turn 1 or 2, more than likely you should be able to get 1 attack off as long as it doesn't get hit with an execute. I think the power level of this card is directly going to be correlated to the power level of Empower as a whole. So far, the only Empower cards I've seen that really get me excited have been Debilitate and Spoils of War. Those 2 cards alone might be enough to make Mystic of Ancient Rites playable in like I mentioned, a control monk type of deck. However, I don't think he's going to have much application in a three-color deck at the moment. But obviously we haven't seen all the Empower cards, so I still could be wrong on that front. For now, I'm going to give this card... Empower can be very powerful, so we're going to give this card 3 stars for now. I'd be willing to bump it up to 3.5 if we see even one more pretty powerful Empower card. Next up, we've got Renowned Instructor. 3-cost, 3/3 Nord with Expertise, summon a 1/1 recruit. So we've got another token generator, and in tokens decks, most of your cards are pretty cheap, and you're playing a lot of token generating actions or supports to buff all of your tokens. So your Expertise ability shouldn't be too hard to trigger in theory. Is getting a 1/1 recruit good enough out of this? It depends. So I try to judge these cards based on how good are they, or are they worth it if you only trigger the effect once. So if you play Renowned Instructor and it just dies, is that good enough? No. If you played Renowned Instructor and trigger the ability just once, is that good enough? It depends. So if you play Renowned Instructor and Scouting Patrol, so you pay a total of 4 Magicka and 2 cards, I think in that situation, it's more or less fine. Or if you play another card that you were going to play anyway. So if you're not forcing out a card just to trigger the Expertise. In those situations, yeah, it's fine. You're getting 4/4 worth of stats on a 3-cost card. As long as you're not forcing a card play that you didn't want to play otherwise, you're getting more stats than the typical cost for the card. And if you trigger Expertise any more times after that, this card gets better and better. So I guess tokens have not a ton of 3-drops that they're playing or feel good about playing. If you're playing a mostly mono yellow list, you're going to run Resolute Ally, maybe East March Crusader for some draw, and I can't really think, and Pit Lion probably. So Renowned Instructor is going to be competing with some of those cards. But I really don't think it's that bad. I don't know. I'm torn on this card. Like, I feel like this is good as like a passive token generator. And token decks obviously love more tokens because that's just more damage and more buffs to go around and all that jazz. I think this is going to be really good in dual color tokens. I don't think it'll be super great in tricolor tokens. But then again, tricolor tokens might just need any cards possible to fill out the list, so this could wind up fitting in that deck as well. It's just, if the Expertise was summoning a 1/1 recruit in each lane, I would be all over this card. And at that point, it might even be too good. But just 1/1 recruit really relies on you having some cheap cards to play it right away. Because if you have to hang on to this card and it becomes like a turn 5 or turn 6 play instead of a turn 3, maybe turn 4 play, I think the card gets a lot worse. So the power level of this card, I think, basically hinges on whether you can get it out on turn 3 or 4 with something like a Nord Firebrand or a Scouting Patrol. I think those are the ways you're really going to want to have this card be at its best. So in that case, since it's not a good all-the-time card, but it does help the synergies of the deck, we're going to give Renowned Instructor 3 stars. I could see it going up to 3.5-ish if tokens decks are kind of reborn in the meta, and we get some other cheap token synergy cards in general. I could see this getting a lot better. Next up, we've got Strategic Deployment. Sorry, I messed up my link. Where are you, Strategic Deployment? Here we go. It's a 4-cost action. Summon 2 1/1 recruits in each lane. So this is basically Imperial Reinforcements, but split. Imperial Reinforcements is a 4-cost willpower action. It summons 4 1/1 grunts to a single lane, or fills a lane, but in regular constructed, that's 4 creatures. In Strategic Deployment, you're getting 2 1/1s in each lane. Is that good or better than Imperial Reinforcements? I think it depends. I feel like I keep saying that, but when I'm playing a tokens deck, as long as I haven't just recently been Ice Stormed or something like that, a lot of the times you're going to have at least one of your lanes mostly filled. And in that situation, Imperial Reinforcements, you're either going to play it in the empty lane, or you have to hang on to it because you can't really get full value out of it. If you're not getting at least 3 creatures getting buffed from Imperial Reinforcements, or all 4 creatures from Imperial Reinforcements, you kind of don't want to play it because it's feel bad in that situation. So if you have creatures in both lanes already, and Imperial Reinforcements isn't a good play in either lane, obviously Strategic Deployment is better because you can get that full 4/4 worth of stats and potentially split them up in lanes. So if you had already set up a Pit Lion play and you have 3 creatures in one lane or 2 creatures in one lane and 1 in the other, Strategic Deployment is better than Imperial Reinforcements in that situation. And I think that's a board state that tokens can find themselves in quite a bit. Additionally, it's just another action that can summon 4 tokens, which I think fits into tokens decks pretty well. And with Catapult not really being a thing anymore, you don't have to always worry about having your lane full. In fact, we've seen much more synergy revealed lately for having a creature in each lane. So I think in general, Strategic Deployment is going to be better than Imperial Reinforcements. This is another one of those cards, though, that relies on how good tokens are at the moment. But if there's enough cards that have that, if there's a creature in each lane text, you can possibly run a package of those cards without necessarily running a tokens deck. So I think Strategic Deployment's better than Imperial Reinforcements and a bit more flexible in that situation as well. You've got all your regular token synergies with this card. You got some Betray fodder. I like it. I don't think it's super flashy, but I think the splitting of the tokens into 2 different lanes is better than it appears when you first think about it. So in tokens decks, I think this will wind up being pretty good. In general, you may find some other uses for it, but obviously tokens is kind of what this was designed for, but I'm not saying that it's impossible to find some other situations. I'm going to give this card 3.5 stars. We've had periods where tokens just completely rule the roost in this game, and I've learned not to underrate anything that generates tokens. Even something like Marked Man, which seems like garbage at first, will end up being very, very good. And if the creature in both lane mechanic continues to be revealed, this will be a great enabler for it, because barring AoE, 2 different 1/1s in each lane, you're more than likely not going to be able to attack all of them to get rid of them all, so chances are something will be left behind. And finally, last reveal we're going to talk about in today's episode is the Ruby Throne. I think we had this in one of our leaks we talked about. It's a 3-cost unique support with the ability to summon crown a creature, any creature. At the end of each player's turn, give crowned creatures +1/+1. If there is no crowned creature in play, when either player summons a unique creature, crown it. So, when you summon this card, you can crown anything. So I can crown one of my own creatures. At the end of my turn, it gets +1/+1. And then if at the end of my opponent's turn they don't remove said crowned creature, it'll get +1/+1 again, meaning by the time your turn comes back around, you get +2/+2 on this on your crowned creature, which is pretty decent, and it'll continue to buff and snowball as long as it doesn't get removed. If that creature gets removed, either player has the opportunity to gain said crowned creature by summoning a unique, which at that point will be a unique legendary, and then you can take control of the crown, so to speak. I could see this spawning some sort of singleton unique legendary type of deck. I don't think we quite have enough good uniques just yet to warrant building a full deck around it, but this is going to be an incredibly fun card to play with. And from what I've read about the lore of the Ruby Throne, I think this fits pretty well flavor-wise. And I hope it has some really cool animations and stuff with crowning and buffing and all that stuff. And I think I did see from Josh Outer-Layton on Twitter that the card does get a little crown at the top, like where this gem would be. It gets a little crown. I think he showed a picture of a mud crab with the crown on it. So I don't think this card will be super competitively viable just yet. If we do hit a point where we have like a critical mass of unique legendaries and you can warrant running an entire deck without having a horrible power level. Because that's the thing, like if you want this to be a thing, you need to have enough unique legendaries that you can run a deck of just, or more or less just unique legendaries, and have that be more or less good enough on its own, and have the Ruby Throne just be an additional great card in that deck. And we have things like Starsung Bard that would fit into that deck as well. I just don't think we have quite enough unique legendaries just yet, but maybe I'm wrong. I would definitely... This is the kind of thing that I'm going to look into, and you'll probably see on the channel regardless, even if it's bad. I'll probably build a unique legendary singleton type of deck, or maybe not even necessarily singleton. Maybe I want to run 3 of actions and stuff to support said unique legendaries. But it's definitely going to be something that I'm going to explore and have a lot of fun doing. The snowball potential is pretty interesting. It's just a matter of how many unique legendaries do you have in your deck to continue taking advantage of this card, and I don't think the number is high enough yet for it to be good, but this is one of those cards that you keep an eye on every single expansion and keep reassessing the number of unique legendaries we have. So I think at the moment, the raw power level of the card with the current card pool in mind is about 1.5, maybe 2 stars. However, I think this is a card that could skyrocket if we hit enough unique legendaries. I just don't think we're there quite yet. However, this is one of the coolest cards in the set and going to be one of the most fun to play around with. So I can't wait to give this card a shot. But yeah, that is going to be it for now, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think of the cards down below in the comment section, or any synergies I may have missed, or how you're planning on using them. I love reading all your guys' feedback, even if I don't get a chance to respond to every single one of you. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. Thank you guys all very much for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace!